Hey, how's it going, guys? Captain Kuba here, and E3 is upon us, boys!
I can feel it in my scrot.
While this gaming event is not what it used to be, it is still a time for gamers all around the world to get together and celebrate this hobby we love so much. And I don't know about you, but I'm already getting excited about all the game announcements this event has in store for us. I hope to see games like the next Bioshock, the Callisto Protocol, Breath of the Wild 2, and of course I'm hoping for the rumored Uncharted 5. But without a doubt, the game I want to see the most is the next God of War game. It's hard to believe, but this game was announced 8 months ago. I think it's more than reasonable to expect at least a longer trailer that has more to show aside from the logo. And I know what you're gonna say. Kuba, why are you stupid? Sony doesn't go to E3 anymore. And in a sense, you're right. But ever since Sony's departure from E3, they've always had a big State of Play event around the same time, in which they'd reveal all of their upcoming games. So when I talk about Sony's E3 conference, that's the event I'm referring to. However, Sony hasn't confirmed this State of Play yet, which is cause for concern. But given that they've always had one, I'm expecting them to announce it very soon. With that said, all of this talk about E3 has gotten me hyped about a possible gameplay reveal for the next God of War game, which is why I decided to do a list of things I believe Santa Monica should fix or add in the sequel. This list is particularly hard to do since God of War 2018 is easily one of the best games I've ever played. So some of these entries will seem like nitpicks, while other ones will seem like obvious fixes Santa Monica will correct without anyone suggesting them. With that said, here are 5 things I think Santa Monica should fix in the God of War sequel, because I couldn't think of 10. And we're starting off the list with nitpick number 1. Why is it that whenever Kratos kicks down a chain, he starts to go down with it automatically? This may seem like a stupid complaint, but I'm sure I wasn't the only one who wanted to kick down the chain, explore some more, and then go down. Now, I can't blame Santa Monica Studios too much for this, since it's normal for a developer to assume that a player wants to go down at the same time they kick the chain. But at least for me, I'd rather have the freedom to choose when to go down. It's such a small thing, but please fix it. Next is a complaint many OG God of War fans had about the game: lack of bosses. The God of War series has always been known for having many boss battles for players to take down. God of War 3 had 8 boss battles, while God of War 2018 only had 6. At first, this might not seem like a big difference, but you also have to take into account that God of War 3 was much more of a scripted game, while God of War 2018 allowed you to return to places you had already visited, and also completely optional areas. In other words, God of War 2018 is a much bigger game, and it somehow has less bosses. Some of these optional areas have good setups, but never really deliver on a final confrontation. The game usually makes you fight a troll and call it a day. These arenas would have been the ideal location for optional boss fights. The problem regarding the lack of bosses is one that I'm not too worried about, since Cory Barlog himself has said that he had planned a lot more bosses, but due to lack of resources, the team couldn't include them in the final game. And since God of War 2018 was one of the best-selling games on the PS4, I'm sure Sony wouldn't mind giving Santa Monica a little more resources this time around. Maybe we'll get that Helheim boss battle we wanted so much. Something else I think Santa Monica should consider is the inclusion of more Metroidvania mechanics. And I'm not talking about suddenly making the game 2D with pixel art. Instead, I'm referring to what you could potentially do upon returning to already visited areas. Much like the lack of bosses in the game, once you return to areas, there's nothing really new for you to do. In games like Symphony of the Night, the player comes across areas that seem impossible to reach. That is until you receive an ability later on that allows Alucard to turn into a bat and fly to it. In my opinion, mechanics like these need to be included in a game as open as God of War in order to keep the experience fresh after the game has ended. God of War 2018 already seems to implement these ideas by blocking off areas that require the electric arrows to pass or the light arrows to form bridges. Santa Monica just needs to add more of these features, and they'll make the exploring the world a lot more rewarding. The sequel would be the perfect game to implement these features, since Atreus seems to be interested in shapeshifting into other animals. Not only will this change the combat system, but it might also change the approach to exploration in a positive way. Anyone who has watched any of my live streams and remembers someone in the chat asking me what is the thing I hate the most in God of War 2018 probably remembers me ranting about the armor system in the game for 10 minutes straight. First of all, if I'm being honest, I think the new armors look horrendous on Kratos. I guess Santa Monica Studios went for a more realistic look and made them more bulky, but the end result is people saying Kratos has a dad bod, and that's simply not true. This is what he looks like without any armor. Any of you guys would kill to look like this. Yet, this is what he looks like in the final game. I don't think this realistic approach to the armor was the original idea, since the same armors look really good on him in the art book. The other thing I hate about the armor system is how many of them there are. There's one for cooldown, one for fire resistance, one for runic attack, one for blah 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 blah. And the worst thing is that they all come in separate parts. Why couldn't they just give me the entire armor? Instead, I have to stop every 20 minutes to go into the menu and look if the bracers I just acquired match my other armored set in stats. I think for the next game they should only have 3 armors max. 2 of them should be pretty easy to get, while the other one copies the idea Assassin's Creed 2 had with Altair's armor. Have one powerful armor that's unavailable to the player at the start of the game. In order to get said armor, Kratos will need to acquire keys that open the vault. This will give the action of getting the armor more of an adventure feel to it, instead of just opening random chests and finding one. If you want a God of War example, think of the Muse's key from God of War 1. You didn't know at the moment what you were collecting them for, but the moment you opened that door, you saw the reward waiting for you and you felt an amazing sense of adventure. Something like this needs to happen in the armor system for the next game. Quality over quantity. My last complaint about the game is very similar to the previous one. In my opinion, we need less RPG mechanics. The reason it's similar because RPG mechanics in the armor system are best buddies. After getting a new armor, you're also given the option to equip runes on it. These runes give Kratos perks such as moderate perk activation chance to grant Blessing of Runic when using a runic attack, very low activation chance to grant Blessing of Cooldown when damage is taken, moderate perk activation chance to grant Gift of Strength on any successful axe skill, high perk activation chance to grant Blessing of Runic on any successful parry, and my favorite, reduces all damages from Dark Elf's attacks by 12%. Is this rune really telling me that I should stop the game every time I see a Dark Elf to equip it? This is how long it would take me to do so. This is what I mean when I say RPG mechanics are overrated. In theory they sound really cool, but they don't fare so well during execution. Let me ask you, who here actually stopped the game this many times to equip a rune? I know I didn't, well, except with Sigrun because she kept on kicking my butt. But in my opinion, I think games are more fun when it requires players to learn attack patterns instead of just beefing yourself up with stats. And for a game that implemented the amazing feature of never cutting during cutscenes or gameplay, they should have known that spending 10 minutes reading stats in a menu didn't really align well with that vision. So there you have it guys, my opinion on the 5 things Santa Monica should fix in the next game. If you really think about it, there's honestly 2 things that really bother me about God of War 2018. The other ones are just me saying, hey, you know that cool thing you did there? Yeah, make more of those please. That just goes to show what a modern classic this game is. But it's also true that no game is perfect. Now I turn to you, what do you think Santa Monica should fix in the next game? Do you agree with my list, or do you have other ones you want to mention? If you do, make sure to let me know in the comment section below. As always, I want to give a big thanks to all of my members for their monthly support of the channel. People like Jonas Putcher, Rodrigo Becerril, and Triple Eight, to name a few, are the main reason I can still upload these videos without having to worry about getting a job. An actual job, that is. I would also like to thank all of the people who share and likes my videos. It doesn't seem like much, but it really does help put me in the algorithm. So with that said, thanks for watching, and remember, go forth in the name of Ragnarok.